All right. Hello, everyone. Alex Swenson here from my house. Hope you're all doing well and finding ways to stay busy in our current circumstances with the obviously the coronavirus quarantine going on. Wanted to take some time to discuss new member education with you all. Obviously, a lot of us are in a tough spot in trying to educate our new members, trying to figure out where we left off and how we can keep them engaged and ultimately hopefully get them initiated. And so wanted to spend some time with you all out there. Hopefully I have a lot of Hegemons watching right now, but really this information could be for anyone. Preet and I, alumni volunteers, chapter advisors, or new members, guys who want to take some initiative in their new member class and lead their chapter and their new members to getting across the finish line. So I have some slides for you that I want to share, a few points to discuss. Then at the end, we'll provide contact information. And if you have questions, if you have thoughts, concerns, anything like that, I'm happy to address those via email, via phone call, whatever works for you. But we will get started here. Just want to first introduce myself. Again, Alex Swenson. I'm the Director of Education for the fraternity for Tau Kappa Epsilon headquarters. My main function is really twofold in the fraternity. One is plan a lot of our conferences and events, RLCs, Leadership Academy, Conclave, a lot of that you see. That comes from the education team, from myself and a few others. And then the second aspect of that is ongoing education, collaboration, and initiatives, online education, new member education, alumni education. All of that really falls under my umbrella as well. And so that's why I wanted to take some time here to address one specific topic. But again, there's a good chance you're going to be seeing a lot of different educational offerings coming from myself and coming from our office here in the next few weeks, just depending on how long we're all out of school, away from campus, and trying to close out the year for TEAC. We're here because, as I mentioned, a lot of chapters and colonies were just getting rolling with new member education, that or they were nearing the end of it. We know everyone was in a different position, and we recognize the challenges that are facing a lot of you when it comes to both educating your new members and getting them initiated, excuse me. We recognize that holding a physical live initiation is probably not feasible this semester. Most of you are in many cases not allowed back on campus, and even if you are at some point, there's a good chance that by the time we get to that point, it'll be for finals. You'll be cleaning out your dorm rooms or cleaning out your rooms at the house, and then you're off and away for the summer. So I understand that, and we get that, but there are a few things that we can do to engage our new members and to keep them going with their education so that we can still get them initiated. We can still officially get them in the system as full members of TEAC. And then once we get back to campus, hopefully early next fall, we can hold those initiation ceremonies. Obviously, no one signed up for this. No one signed up for this version of TEAC. No one signed up for this version of college. No one signed up for this version of work, of social time. There's a lot of unknowns right now with our situation. What we can do, and I think being in a fraternity can help this and help us push forward, is figure out what's the best possible solution to still accomplish our goals. What is best for the situation? What is best for the people involved? And how can we continue to push and get to that finish line, whether it's with new members, whether it's with e-compliance, or whether it's with finals and tests and trying to figure out how you're going to graduate or how you're going to close out the school year. These are very strange times and they call for some creative solutions, but I don't want you to feel like you just have to drop everything, right? You got to drop TEAC, you have to focus on your online classes, and that's it. Now's the time when you have a little more time to spend, maybe with your laptop, maybe at home doing some things you wouldn't have had the chance to do otherwise. And so we're going to move forward. And really there's three big areas that I want to touch on and that I want to talk about as it relates to new member education. The first of which is thinking about what we can do through email and through text message. So I would encourage you, if you're a Hegemon or if you're a chapter advisor who's advising a Hegemon or a Preakness, compile some lesson plans, right? That's where we need to start with new member education. Figure out what these guys have learned and where they are in the process and what they still need to learn. Compile those, use Microsoft Word, use Google Docs, whatever format you're comfortable with, but compile that and get it out. Get it out to your new members so that they know where they're headed. They need some direction, right? A lot of them are probably feeling like, what do I do? I haven't heard from my Hegemon. I haven't heard from the chapter. Are we still getting initiated? Are we still doing education? So that's step one, is really having that communication. A few tips as you're devising your lesson plans. Think about what readings you can do in the Teak Guide. Hopefully everyone has their Teak Guide. They took that home with them and has it available. What are some different readings that you can offer from newspaper articles or online articles that may address things outside of Teak, things like college from a remote location, things like taking tests, taking finals from your home, from your laptop. Find different resources that you can compile to enhance the lives of your new members right now, understanding the situation they're in. Same thing with videos, with podcasts. What are personal development pieces that you can put out there that you can ask them to view and take part in as a Hegemon, that's going to make their lives easier and hopefully feel a little more fulfilled, even though they might not have the human-to-human contact that they've been craving. And then lastly, peer-to-peer learning. You know, what are some things that they can learn from one another throughout this time? The last thing on lesson plans is Teak does have a 6-week guide to candidate education. I'll show you that a little later, but that's another resource that you can use. It is available on our website, and some of the lesson plans are laid out there in very great detail regarding readings in the Teak Guide and what you can ask your new members to do at this time. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that resource as well. Also, what are some different brotherhood building things that you can do? What are some different activities that can take place via video chat or through email or via conference call? And I'll get to that a little more in a second, but think about, again, what our goal is here is to A, continue to educate our new members, but B, also to give people that personal attention that they're probably missing out on right now, being at home with their families. You know, maybe someone's at home with just their parents, or they have brothers and sisters, but they're off in other parts of the country. So how can you continue to build that sense of community? That's really the reason that most people join Talk at Epsilon. As you go through this, as you do this email, this texting, I would ask your new members to make sure they're checking their email once, if not more, a day. I know emails can get lost at times, especially when there's so much other uncertainty, but make sure they're checking their email. If you're going to use that as a means to communicate throughout this process, make sure that they're staying on top of that and they're responding when they're asked to respond. And request updates from your new members. That is probably the best way to check in with them in terms of just a quick, hey, how's it going? And that might be a text message too, but hey, what'd you think of that last chapter in the Teak Guide? Or hey, what'd you think of that article I sent out? Give them some checkpoints to respond to you as the Hegemon, as the administrator of this process, so that they don't feel like they're just reading and then just leaving it out for open interpretation. Request them to send you some emails, to stay in touch with you through email and through texting. I think it's going to make both your lives a lot easier. And then the last little tip that I would give you is just use email to keep conversations going. We as a staff at headquarters, we're all at home. Obviously, you can see this is my house. Everyone's at their house. We have a few different email threads going that people just update periodically. It's not real formal. There's no Dear Frauder, yours in the bond at the beginning and end of every single email that we send. But we're using those email threads to stay in touch, to keep that sense of community among our staff. I think it would be a really cool thing for you to do as a Hegemon for your new member class. The second piece, and this is where I really want to focus a lot of our time, is on virtual meetings. The vessel that I have been using and that I'm filming this on right now is Zoom. It's just, if you Google search Zoom conference calls, it'll show up. You can create a free account there. You can hold meetings up to 40 minutes with up to 100 participants. So this is where you can actually, as long as your new members have access to internet and have a webcam, everyone can jump into this video conference. It doesn't cost a dime. And you can have some of these same discussions that you might be able to have otherwise had in your chapter room or in the house or in a room on campus. That is where we're gonna really see the difference, I think, in successful groups educating their new members in the next month versus groups that are unsuccessful. How are you utilizing technology and how are you using video conferencing to be able to still look guys in the eye, ask them questions and have those conversations. And there are paid Zoom services as well. I'm not an official endorser of their product or anything, but I do believe that it's a very good resource, again, for being absolutely free, that you all should really consider utilizing. In terms of best practices, as the leader on the Zoom account, you would create your account. You would ask everyone to then just click on a link that would pop up their webcam and have them participate. But you as the leader have a few different capabilities. One is you have the ability to share your screen, which is what I'm doing right now with a PowerPoint presentation. Two, you can control who's talking, who's not talking. You can use the mute function to ensure that while you're having discussions, there aren't dogs barking in the background or parents yelling at the new members to wash their dishes or whatever the case may be. But you do have that function as well. So again, I just encourage you to create a Zoom account, go in, play around with it a little bit, and then start scheduling those check-ins, whether they're weekly, bi-weekly, whatever the case may be. That contact right there is going to be worlds above what they're probably experiencing otherwise. Maybe some people are having online classes right now where they're with their professor and watching their professor speak to an empty classroom. But that's likely it. You know, we're not supposed to be out of our houses. We're not supposed to be in groups of more than 10 people. We can still gather and have conversations, see friendly faces, and be able to have that sense of brotherhood via these virtual meetings. When you're using the video conferences, then that's when you can really dive into the discussions on the readings from the Tea Guide, on the podcast, the videos. You can have some robust conversations over video conferencing. And again, we've done it as a staff so far. That's our main mode of communication, is the video conference for the offices of the Grand Chapter. So you can have those conversations, and I think once people get used to it and once people get in the flow, it really doesn't feel too much like you're not in a room altogether. And again, it's a really cool way to be able to see everyone's face and keep them engaged. I would also suggest that when you're planning these meetings, you give questions to discuss ahead of time. So throw questions out. Again, this can be email, Google Docs, whatever the written communication is. Give them some questions to come prepared to talk about, so you're not throwing a question out to the entire group and they're all taking 5 minutes to think about it, and then you've blown 5 of your 40-minute allotment. Be intentional about how you set these meetings up, about the pre-work you're giving, and about the lessons you want them to take away. And that's going to help these video conferences flow much smoother than if everyone just gets on and says, "Hey man, what do you want to talk about today?" That's not a real good setup for success when you're holding these new member meetings. And then lastly, with Zoom, you know, even if everyone can't be on every meeting, you can throw that Zoom link out and say, "Hey, at Monday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be on there. If you guys want to talk about NFL free agency, or you want to talk about, you know, what your latest achievements on the PS4 are." Like, there are a lot of different ways to utilize this, again, to keep that human to human contact. And it doesn't just have to be with your new members either. If you're watching this as a Preakness, throw a Zoom link out to the entire chapter and say, "Hey guys, I just want to get together. I want to see your faces. I want to hear your voices Tuesday at 4 p.m. Hop on the Zoom. Let's all chat. Let's see what's going on in everyone's lives, and we'll be off, and we'll do it again in a few days." That again is where you can provide some value as a leader in your chapter or colony that these members might not be getting otherwise with the interaction with your brothers. The second piece that I do want to touch on are conference calls. There is a conference call service. It is it's freeconferencecall.com, freeconferencecall.com. You can have up to 1,000 participants on a phone call. So if you're not comfortable with the video chat, or you feel a phone call would be better, you can still go create an account at Free Conference Call and use that. I think the video chat's better, or if you have more than 100 people who want to be on, then that would be the way to do it. I think the video chat's better. I think you're going to get more out of it, but it is an option. Normally conference calls would function just fine, but without the ability to then gather in person after a conference call, again, I think the video chat is going to be your best bet. But regardless, having conversations, having discussions where you're hearing voices, you're getting real-time feedback, that's going to keep your new members engaged. It's going to keep them bought into Teak, and it's going to enhance their learning, even if they can't be on campus at weekly new member meetings, going through the process that you may have set up ahead of time. Moving on now, we're going to take a little break. So I've laid some content on you. No one knows I'm doing this. So if I get fired, it was nice talking. It was nice having this last conversation with you. While you are quarantined, we have Alex Swenson's top 10 shows to binge during the quarantine. This list is mine and mine alone. It is not the opinion of the offices of the Grand Chapter in any way, shape, or form. But hopefully, if you're looking for something to do outside of TEAC and outside of your college class load, I have some ideas for you. It also allowed me to really ramp up the PowerPoint animations, which we all know and love. So let's get to the list. Number 10, True Detective. I say seasons 1 and 3. 2's not great. You can watch it if you want. Season 1, as a standalone, is probably the best season of television that I personally have watched any show. But 3's pretty good too. So you can dive in there. True Detective 1 and 3. Number 9, Parks and Rec, just a good old-fashioned fun comedy. A lot of good laughs to be had there. And there's a lot of Parks and Rec episodes. You can have it on in the background while you're studying, while you're doing TEAC stuff. Of course, paying most attention to your laptop. But Parks and Rec, again, highly recommended. Number 8, this is on ESPN right now. OJ, Made in America. Most of us were not actually alive when the OJ stuff went down. So watch this documentary, decide for yourself if he did it, and then give him a follow on Twitter and watch him talk on his golf courses about how sad he is that he has to be quarantined. Poor guy. Number 7, Stranger Things. This is a Netflix series, very highly regarded. Impossible for me to describe on this this webinar right now, but I would give Stranger Things a shot if you haven't already. This next one, kind of a dark horse, no pun intended. Dark. It is on Netflix. The downside is it's all in German, so you have to watch it with subtitles. If you got through Parasite, you'll be fine. Dark is fantastic. There's a very, very twisted web that is spun and then unraveled and then spun again. But Dark is very good. If you're looking for something a little, more think-based, it's going to really twist your brain into a pretzel at times. But Dark, very, very good series. 2 seasons out on Netflix right now. Number 5, Game of Thrones, and I say that with an asterisk because if you were to stop Game of Thrones at season 6, episode 10, you would stop with one of the best episodes of television that I think's ever been created, and you'd be feeling pretty good about everything. And then you watch season 7 and you feel a little less good, and then you watch season 8 and suddenly you're wondering what you're doing with your life. So I'm going to Game of Thrones with that caveat that the last 2 seasons, not so good, but still a very good series overall. Number 4, Ozark. So there's a new season of Ozark. Season 3 is coming out this Friday on Netflix. Jason Bateman at his very best. Highly recommend Ozark there. First episode, phenomenal. You'll watch 1 episode, you'll be hooked. Number 3, Barry. This is an HBO series, and I know I keep giving a lot of personal opinions, but my personal opinion, the number 1 show on television right now. Again, it'd be very hard for me to describe, but you got to go in with an open mind. Give Barry a shot if you have access to HBO. Number 2, The Office, of course, Michael Scott. Perfect comedy, in my opinion. One of my favorite television series of all time. 9 seasons, so you have plenty of episodes to watch. Whether you've watched the season or the series 11 times or you've watched it 0 times, never hurts to start The Office from scratch. And then lastly, my number 1 show to binge during the quarantine, Friday Night Lights. My number 1 TV series of all time, available on Netflix. You don't have to like football to enjoy it. It's just excellent, top to bottom. Coach Taylor, Matt Saracen, bring the heat every single day. And if you haven't watched Friday Night Lights, give it a shot. Will not regret it. Send me your feedback on it, and looking forward to having those discussions. All right, feeling good about that. Back into our learning mindset. Going to keep moving along here. The third phase, remember way back at the beginning, I talked about the 3 different points. The third phase is actually getting these new members initiated. Again, I said it already. I know holding a physical initiation and a secret work ceremony and all of that is going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, this semester. I understand that. If you do a good job keeping in contact with your candidates, though, if you do a good job with this online process, you're going to be in a position that really day 1, you step foot back on campus, you can do these ceremonies and get them over with. So don't feel like I don't want you to go back to campus thinking, oh, we have to do 6 more weeks of new member education and then we can do initiation. Put yourself in a position where you can hold these rituals immediately when everyone is back. These new members joined Teak with the understanding that they were going to become members of the fraternity this semester. Don't take that away from them. Don't take away the opportunity to be a full-fledged member in Tau Kappa Epsilon because of everything that's happened. And I'm going to get to this, but there's still plenty of opportunities to get them across the finish line and get them initiated just like they signed up to do. They didn't sign up to be candidates for the entire summer and then the first 6 weeks of the fall semester. I'm assuming some of these candidates have been candidates since the fall. Don't make them wait almost a full year to get initiated. Give them the opportunity to join Teak right now in this environment within the next month or two. There are still financial obligations, and that's where I draw back to point one. If you have candidates that were logged in the system, if you have candidates that were registered and validated and even paid their candidate fees, we are still requiring that those initiate fees are paid. So again, us as a headquarters office, we're not extending this process into next fall. We're still asking all fees to be paid. There's more information about that online, and I'll share that at the very end. But if you have candidates in the system, the expectation is that they do finish this semester as paid initiates in the fraternity. And then again, all you have to do is do the hour-long initiation ceremony, and they're not done, but their process as candidates is completed. And even if you have candidates who aren't logged yet, still log those candidates. We still require spring candidates to be logged in the module, to be put in there, to do e-compliance, to validate, to pay their candidate fee and pay their initiation fee. The candidate to initiate process does not stop, and it will not stop for us at a headquarters level. And that's really the whole point of why I'm having this discussion with you all right now, because I want to give you the tools necessary and give you some ideas to help continue to facilitate that process and make sure that it happens. Think about if you leave candidates unpaid, what they're going to do over the summer, right? They're going to go back home. They're going to talk to their friends, many of whom are not Teaks and are not students at your university. And I think there's a really good chance that you're gonna lose them, right? Everyone says they're bought in. Everyone says they're all in on Teak, and then they go home. They start thinking about the money. They start thinking about the obligations. If you get them initiated, if they pay their initiation fee, they're in. They're committed. They are bought in. They have that skin in the game, and so it's important to you all to get that done and to not let them go with really no financial ties whatsoever to the fraternity to go through the entire summer and into next fall with that mindset. There's no black book requirement as to when an initiation ritual takes place versus when an initiation fee is paid. So think about that too. We don't require that just because you pay your initiation fee on April 30th that you then have to go and initiate in the ceremony within the next 2 weeks. You can pay your initiation fee tomorrow and sit through the ritual in a month, and that's perfectly fine. The only black book requirement is actually the opposite. It's that the new member process takes no more than 8 weeks from the time someone signs their bid and becomes a candidate until the time that they're initiated. So there are black book precedents as well to ensure that we're still getting guys initiated, paid up in the system. I understand that this is very unconventional, right? And I know, again, I talked about that at the beginning. I understand we're asking you to do something that you've never done before, that you might not be comfortable with. These are unconventional times though, and they call for solutions that are in the best interest of everyone involved. Best interest of the chapter, best interest of the international fraternity, and most importantly, in the best interest of the new members. And I still believe what is in the best interest of the new members, no matter what chapter they're in, is to become an initiated member of Tau Kappa Epsilon this semester, just like they expected to do. Consider what's worse for the chapter. Consider what the alternative is, right? On one hand, you have guys that maybe don't get the full new member education experience, but they get it, right? They get the video chats, they get the phone calls, they get the email threads, they get all of that, and then they get initiated, and then they have their ritual ceremony at the beginning of next semester, right? That's behind door one. Behind door two is you lose half of your candidate class because, just like I said, they go home and they don't feel as bought in. They don't feel like a part of the fraternity over the summer. and they decide not to come back for tea. I think we would all choose door one, right? Maybe shave a couple weeks off our new member process, make this look a little different than what we expected it to, versus door two, where we're losing guys and we're having new members who aren't bought into the fraternity, aren't bought into the chapter, and decide that they don't want to be a part of it. Your chapter is very likely still relying on on all of its members to pay dues as well. There are things that you all need to do from a budget standpoint that ensure that you don't start next semester in a hole, that you don't start next semester way behind on finances because everyone left and no one paid their dues. We're asking the same thing of the new members. We don't want them to come in and have to pay $300 the moment they step back on campus in the fall. That's a much more difficult conversation, I think, than still letting them know you're going to be providing value, you're going to be providing education, and having them go ahead and become an initiated member of Tau Kappa Epsilon. The last 2 points there, don't scrap your brotherhood events. I know a big part of new member education is building brotherhood amongst the pledge class. You can still do that through the video chats, through the email chains, through the text conversations. All of that can still happen. These guys can still have robust conversations. They can still interact with one another. They can still interact with the rest of the chapter. It's just not going to be in person. So don't feel like you have to throw the brotherhood aspect out the window either. And then lastly, the role of the Hegemon, and again, hopefully I have a lot of Hegemons watching right now, is the member educator. It's not the new member educator. What this does, what this situation does, is it simply puts more emphasis on your role as an educator of all the members. You're going to have guys who get initiated probably without the full scope of education they would have received otherwise. Now it's on you to think of creative ways to continue to advance their education, their knowledge base, and educate them as full members in Tau Kappa Epsilon. And I hope that gives you some guidance and gives you some additional meaning to your role as Hegemon as you go through the fall semester. Couple more slides here. First, how can headquarters help? How can our office help? There's a few things that we can do. First, utilize our staff. We are still working for you. We are still working to ensure that you all are successful. And again, we're all at home, right? Everyone's off the road right now, so you're not competing with chapter visits or anything like that when you're looking to interact with the staff member. Your regional directors, your associate regional directors, those guys all want to help, and most of them have experience hosting conference calls, hosting Zoom meetings, hosting group chats, so they can help you get a lot of that going, but you have to reach out and ask. Think about our senior leadership: Donnie Aldrich, Greg Rostoff, Chris Niles, Brett Widner, Alex Baker. Those guys all have different wheelhouses as well. Those guys all want to help. Those guys all are available. So don't hesitate to reach out to someone you may not have otherwise to get some assistance with this new member education. The volunteers, I hope I have some volunteers watching this, but don't lose sight of keeping your chapter advisor in the loop, of keeping your board of advisors in the loop, your local volunteers, your PAs, your GPAs. Again, those guys still want to help, and those guys are still boots on the ground in your area. Use them as resources. Heaven forbid, you get together with your chapter advisor. You have to stay at least 6 feet apart, obviously, but you get together with a chapter advisor to build this plan and build this out and make sure that everyone's on board with it. That can still happen, and we still want to make sure your volunteers are available and being utilized. And then lastly, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. If you want me to look over your lesson plans, if you'd like a little guidance on, some different resources you can provide, I'm happy to help. The second piece there is payment plans. So whether it's with your new member fees or your other fees, your risk management, your AMS, we know that, again, we're all in different situations and things are a little difficult right now. Reach out to our office and we're happy to work with you. We're happy to set things up so that you all are comfortable with your finances, with your chapter colony, still meeting your obligations to the international fraternity, but not feeling like you have to send a big payment in all at once to get everything taken care of when we don't know if everyone's still working. We don't know, what the bank account situation is. So please reach out to our office if you need help with a payment plan as well. And then lastly, we're looking at some different ways that we might be able to administer new member education. And when I say we, I mean the offices of the Grand Chapter. Thinking about a multi-week program that your candidates could potentially log into and watch, just like you're doing right now. where either myself or someone else on our staff is asking them to do these readings, to read from the Teak Guide, to listen to podcasts, to watch videos, then bringing everyone back, having discussions, requesting them to submit answers to some of these questions, and looking to get that all wrapped up before May 1st so that we're not interfering with finals and with the end of the school year schedule. So that is in the works. What I'm asking of you all is feedback. Please email me, and my email address is on the next slide. If you have thoughts, if you think that might work, if you think it's a horrible idea, I want to know. And I want to know where you are in the process, how much you've gotten done, and what you still need to accomplish, because that's going to help me as we build this out and think about what it might look like to address the issues, address the different situations, and address the problems that you're facing. What topics should we consider? Where can we be the most helpful in educating your new members? I still want you all to have those personal touches, but if headquarters has an opportunity to help advance this process and help bring your new members along, that's something that we want to be able to provide given the very difficult circumstances that we are all in. The chapter would still be responsible for holding the initiation ceremony, right? We can't do a big virtual online ritual and initiation, at least off the top of my head, we can't. So we would still have some buy-in from the chapters and still be asking you guys to complete the process. But if I can help educate your new members, if our office can help do that, we want to. I just need to know from you all where we can be the most helpful. And then lastly, I'm going to switch screens here to show you all some of these different links, and then I'll bring this back up if you're making notes, and hopefully this doesn't spiral out of control for me. And bam, there we go. So the first thing that I want to share with you is this tke.org/staff. This is where you're going to find contact info for all of our staff members, anyone you need to get in touch with. So obviously you have Donnie, you have Pete Dawson, Regional Director, Nick Kimball, Director of Expansion, you know, all of our regional directors, associate regional directors, they can be found here at tke.org/staff. I use myself as a guinea pig here. If you need contact info, just click on the picture, comes up, a little about me if you want to, you know, learn more about your director of education. Phone number, obviously we're away from the office, but most of us still have access to our phone numbers. Email address, Twitter handle there. I would tread lightly, but it's there if you want it. Definitely available. So you can use the tke.org/staff to find contact info for anyone you might need. Next piece, tke.org/coronavirus. This is where we've listed a lot of our resources and a lot of our policies as we go through this next wave. So it kicks off with a message from Donnie there, an official statement. Then we have some deadlines. So you'll see, you know, we talked about the candidate and initiation fees by May 1st, awards, annual reports, all of those things still need to happen. And the due dates are listed out right there at the top. And then we get into some best practices. So chapter operations, I'm not going to read this to you, obviously. Some info about candidate education that would be hopefully helpful to you all. Social events, philanthropy events. If you're still trying to do a St. Jude event, there's some information right here on the best way to do that in a virtual environment. Some housing information, info for our alumni and volunteers as well. And then some additional resources from the OGC. And then lastly, an infographic from our partners at JR Favor that just talks a little more about the coronavirus. Next piece, I talked about the candidate education guide. So this is tke.org/guides. That is the URL. And if you go here, you'll see all sorts of different resource guides. And hopefully you've been on this page before and you've explored it a little bit. There are dozens of different resource guides for you to peruse and use as you see fit. And hopefully the candidate education guide is not the only one that you're finding to be useful in this time being away from campus. But I do want to touch on it quickly here. I'm going to try and view this. Hope it doesn't go sideways. All right. So this is just obviously the preview page for it. Scroll through quickly, some information about health and safety, the role of the Hegemon. Again, I don't need to read this to you all, but we get down here into this candidate education period where it talks timeline, the different sessions, and this is where you can pull some of that information to devise the lesson plans if that's a route that you want to take. We talk about reading chapter 1 of the Teak Guide as a group and discussing takeaways and discussion, talking about expectations of membership. We get into some different things with fraternity and sorority life, and potentially bringing in the FSL advisor on your campus into a Zoom meeting, thinking again about how you can be outside the box with these resources that you're providing and still create a sense of normalcy with your candidate education program. So there's a lot of good stuff here. It's a 6-week program that's going to likely be abbreviated on your end. But I think when you're looking for content, when you're looking for ways to put together a program that's still going to be effective and efficient, this guide could be very, very beneficial. And then the last thing, we just made it full page there. Voila. And then the last thing is our podcast. So the Teak Nation podcast is available both here at tke.org/podcast and also anywhere you get your podcast normally, Spotify, Apple, whatever medium you use. But if you're looking to get into podcasts, if you're if you're not sure where to start, if you have some extra time on your hands, you can start with ours. We have a lot of good information about the fraternity, about how to be a better officer, how to be a better philanthropy chairman, how to be a better CRISO. But we also have a lot of good life advice, financial tips. That's the one at the top of the page here with Rob Guarini. Tips on professional development, on studying, on how to be a good alumni or a good alumnus, on how to be a good volunteer. There are a lot of episodes of this podcast. I don't know off the top of my head how many we produce now. No, 22. Well, there you have it. 22 episodes of this podcast that cover a whole array of different topics. And again, both for your own personal development and for the development of your candidates, I think this would be a really strong resource to provide some additional material as we're all at home looking for ways to stay engaged. I will flip back now to the PowerPoint if I can make this work. Sorry, still learning. There we go. And then we'll get back here. So those links are up there as well as my email address. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And I do want your feedback on that new member education program I talked about earlier. So please reach out, provide that if you're watching and it's something that you think you want to take part in or have your candidates take part in. I want to hear from you as to the best way that we can make that happen and how we can provide the most value. That second email address, the teakogc@tke.org, that is a generic email address for our office. So if you have a question, you're not sure where to send it, you're not sure who to get in touch with, just send it to that email address. And then we have staff members that are responsible for making sure it gets into the right hands. So it won't get lost. It won't get thrown into a big batch of emails that we don't know where they go. It'll get to the right person. It's just if you have a question and you don't know where to send it directly, use that. And then lastly, our social media. That's going to be a huge way for us to stay connected with you all. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're not following the Teak pages, please go in and do so because we're going to be posting updates. We're going to be posting videos. We're going to be posting webinars and web links, all of that. The best way to stay engaged and up to date on what we're doing from a headquarters standpoint is through all of our social media. So please make sure that you're following our Facebook page, our Twitter page, our Instagram page, so that you can stay connected and stay informed as to what's going on in Teak, again, as we go through this next unforeseen amount of time. So take some time to write those down. If you missed them, reach out to me. Hopefully you at least wrote my email address down and can shoot me a message if you have any questions. But again, the overarching point of what I wanted to talk about today is being creative, thinking outside the box. It's not going to be a traditional end of the semester. It's not going to be a traditional end of your new member education program, but that doesn't mean it has to come to a grinding halt. There are lots of opportunities to engage your members, engage your officers, engage your candidates to still ensure that they feel good about Teak and that they feel like they're a part of the brotherhood that you all have worked so hard to create. If you need anything else from our office, please reach out. You can expect more videos like this to be coming in the next few weeks. We have a big list on tap that we're looking forward to sharing with everyone on all sorts of topics, again, to help you all create some sense of normalcy while you're away from campus and unable to gather. But for now, I hope that this was beneficial for you. I hope that you were able to take away some good ideas and you can go be productive with them. Very much looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. very much looking forward to seeing those candidates continue to come in and turn to paid candidates and turn to paid initiates so that we can keep on going and roll right into the summer first and then the fall semester with a lot of momentum, and not miss a beat, even though we're in these very unconventional times. So thank you all again. Please reach out if you have questions, if you have concerns. Looking forward to hearing from you soon and looking forward to talking to you again shortly. Goodbye.